Before we get rolling, I just want to take care of a few housekeeping items. In accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meeting Act, Chapter 231, PL 1975, I wish to announce that the New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the School Districts of the Chatham's Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, place thereof posted in the Board Administrative Offices, sent to the clerks of the clerks of the Chatham Borough, Chatham Township, the Library of the Chathams, the Chatham Courier, the Daily Record, and the Star Ledger. Mr. DeQuilla, would you mind doing roll call?
Be my pleasure.
Down.
Mr. Gilfildy.
Here.
Mr. Arnick.
Here.
Ms. Chigarelli.
Here.
Ms. Clark.
Here.
Mr. Connors. Ms. Drummond. Mr. Brown.
Here.
Ms. Henny. And Ms. White.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Would everybody please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Before we get started into the superintendent's report, I just wanted to make mention that the board is moving forward, having passed the referendum. We've been meeting with the architects. We've had an initial conference call just to set priorities and get some timelines and some milestones. And then a number of us are meeting tomorrow, once at 9 o'clock to discuss the first couple, the Cougar Field priority, and then 11 o'clock to discuss the Chatham High School auditorium. So we're moving along, as judiciously as we can in order to maximize our time. That was why we did it in September, to ensure that we can use every bit of the fall, maybe get some footings and things laid in the winter, and then be ready to go for some of the Cougar projects and get as much work done at the auditorium over the summer as possible. So I didn't want people to think we weren't moving. As soon as, the referendum passed on a Tuesday and we started meeting with the architects on a Thursday, and I'm sure we'll meet on a regular basis, weekly or more frequently as needed. So I just wanted to mention that we're moving forward. Moving on to the administrative report, Dr. LaSousa.
Thank you, Ms. Weber. The only item under my report tonight is the required state testing report that we have to give on an annual basis, and Ms. Chase will take that over.
Oh, Ms. Chase is doing the brief report.
Yes.
And this is the same report reviewed during the curriculum meeting?
Yes.
Or similar
Yes.
report?
Okay. So the report this evening will consist of an overview of the state assessment program, and information about how the district performed in these assessments, and how we will move forward this year with regard to administration of testing. As in the past, all school districts in the state of New Jersey are required to administer certain assessments as required by the state. This year, all students in grades 3 through 8 will participate in a PARCC, ELA, and mathematics. And at the high school level, students who are in either Algebra 1 geometry, Algebra 2, or ELA grades 9 through 11 will participate in a PARCC. The state also requires that school districts assess students in the area of science, and the New Jersey Ask assessments are administered in grades 4 and 8, and then there is another assessment for students who are enrolled in a biology course at the high school. The testing window for this year's PARCC assessment is as follows. And for the science assessments in grades 4 through 8, May 31st, and biology, oh, I'm sorry, there's a typo. That should say May 31st to June 1st. I know there's often questions with regard to the high school administration and the AP testing window. This year's AP testing window, it takes place on the weeks of May 1st and May 8th. The high school has chosen to administer the PARCC ELA assessments at the start of the testing window in March, and then resume on May 15th through May 17th for the math assessments in PARCC. So they'll have ELA, then the AP testing, and then math after the AP testing is completed.
Okay.
All
That's an adjustment from last year.
Yes. This slide shows a comparison of the valid test scores of those students who participated in the ELA and mathematics PARCC assessments in a comparison between 2015 and 2016. Just quickly, you can see that the testing population is pretty comparable in grades 3 through 8. You see a slight decline when we get to the upper assessments. Once students have met the graduation requirement, they have chosen not to participate in these assessments, and that's where we see the drop-off there. This slide here shows the outcomes in English language arts with regard to the 5 proficiency levels, and then again shows information with how the district is performing for students who are meeting levels of proficiency 4 and 5 when compared to the state. Now, it's a little bit cumbersome with regard to data, so I created this slide so you could just see a visual representation of how we fared in comparison to the state. If you look at that black line, it serves as a reference point to make you aware that when compared to the state, we obviously have less students who are not meeting expectations, and then when it comes to meeting or exceeding expectations, we do very well in comparison to the state. Again, another visual representation with regard to how the district is performing when compared to the state, and this just shows our percent of students who are meeting or exceeding expectations were the higher line compared to the state, and this is for English language arts. The next 3 slides will follow this pattern, but with data for mathematics. So this is our raw data with just straight numbers to show you, and if you were to look at this, you could see that we do very well in comparison to the state, almost twice, almost better than double when we're meeting expectations. This here, again, if you look at just very quickly level 4, we're above the line, and the state is well below the line. And again, this is a slide that shows our data of students who are meeting or exceeding expectations when compared to the state in mathematics. These are, this is actually the data from last year's science assessments in grades 4 through 8. We have a significant amount of students who meet the proficiency level, and more than half of our population falls into the advanced proficient range.
Not 4 through 8, right? Just 4 and 8?
Oh, 4 and 8, I'm sorry.
Okay,
Thank
no
you,
problem.
Ms. Weber.
No.
This is a pie
You
chart.
want children beaten at home for not taking the test if they're in the other grades.
This is the data for those students who were enrolled in biology last year. Again, our advanced proficient and proficiency far exceeds those students who are falling in the partially proficient area. Just a note about this assessment, it's not a graduation requirement per se, so just, sometimes students don't take this test as seriously as they do other requirements, but our students fared very well here. We always report out on AP. These 2 images show first the number of subject tests our students have taken over a 5-year period. You could see that there's been a significant increase over right from when we started in 2012 and a slight increase last year. And then again, how Chatham performs in regard to the state and global over a 5-year course, a percentage of students who are scoring a 3 or above. That's what that visual demonstrates.
The top one? I'm
The
sorry.
bottom one, the bottom right.
Okay,
We have our state in the middle and globally at the bottom.
got it.
Just information about the graduation requirements. In August, this past summer, the state adopted more requirements regarding high school graduation all the way down to the class of 2021 and beyond. And when the park assessments continue to evolve, you could see that for our class of 2021, those students, according to this, will be required to pass grade 9, a grade 10 park, and an algebra 1 park. So for our students in 2017, 2018, and 2019, they can meet the graduation requirements by either demonstrate proficiency on a park, and there are required scores, and this information is posted on the high school's website in particular, and on my website as well. There's also a series of substitute competency assessments that the students can demonstrate proficiency. And for those students who don't meet any of these areas, there's a portfolio process that the state provides for those students. Anybody who is looking to gain more information about either the park score reports or about the park assessment itself can visit either of these sites and get information there. And just to let you, the public, know that this presentation will be posted on my the Office of Curriculum Instruction website on the district main page under under presentations. Any questions?
Yes, of course I have a question. You don't have to go back to the slide, but the AP test that were taken, that's the entire school, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so it's
Yes.
not just the juniors and seniors?
No, it's the
Okay,
entire
see.
population.
And same thing with those getting a 3 or above?
Yes.
Okay, and the bump up is also attributed, not only are more kids taking it, but we've
Offered
increased the
more
number
courses.
of AP courses that we offer.
Yes.
So I should certainly hope that the number of students taking the tests are increased. Are you finding that PARCC is very controversial. Is the district able to use any of the data, given the participation rates, to make any kind of assessments or view any kind of pitfalls, or it's too new and the data's not as usable as NJ Ask?
No, it's very new. We were provided with some evidence statements reports that, of course, we look at because that provides us with the most specific data possible. It's aligned to standards, so we look at those. But with our population opting out, it's difficult to get a clear assessment
Okay.
in that area.
And do you have a sense whether the opt-out rate will continue to, or without, I know you don't have a crystal ball, but is there a sense in the education community that it'll continue to decline?
Well, in speaking to some of my counterparts in other districts, there's really different trends we're seeing in different communities. Some communities have had high opt-out rates equal to, if not greater than ours,
Okay.
and they expect that to continue. So I would say over the past 2 years, we've proven to have an increase. So based on
Okay.
that pattern, I would suggest, I would ascertain that we're going to continue to have students who have demonstrated the graduation requirements and who choose not to participate.
And if you don't know this, just say you'll get back to me, but how many states remain in PARCC?
I believe there are definitely less than 10, maybe around 6. I could get back to you with the exact state,
Okay,
maybe even fewer than that at this point.
so it's declining?
Yes.
Just the number of states that are
Exactly.
participating? Okay.
Yes.
I didn't have any additional questions.
I
I'm
just have
sure
a
Ms.
quick-
Clark does.
I have a question about the graduation requirement for 2021. With the Algebra 1, can that be fulfilled? It says must take Algebra 1, but does that have to be taken in grade 9? Can that be taken in grade 8 for 2021 at the middle school level?
My understanding was that it needed to be a high school taken assessment. I've been in contact with the county ed specialist often about this to get clarification, and as that information becomes available, we'll report that out.
So will we be changing our mathematics program so that, if our students are taking geometry, so they can take the geometry, not the Algebra 1, but on 2021, it says they must pass Algebra 1 PARCC, but typically our freshmen take geometry.
Yes.
So would they be sitting, when would they take that Algebra 1 PARCC? They could take that as a sophomore, they could take, that's,
But having not had it since 8th grade.
yeah, that's what I'm just
Yeah.
saying. I think if this is going to be a requirement, we might have to take a look at,
Well, by 2020, this may not be a test that we use.
well, if they're saying this now, I'm just saying.
Right.
Just saying.
Right, you're going with
At
what we-
this moment, I've been in contact with the Ed County specialist specific to the class of 2020 to try to get information for that population because those are our current freshmen and we want to communicate this information out, certainly. But as that information becomes available, we do communicate that out. And we have as many questions as parents and other
Sure.
districts as well about how this will all fare.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ann, did you have a question?
So
sorry.
just to be clear, the class of 2020, the current freshmen, must take PARCC
In high school.
Yes,
in either 9th, 10th, or 11th grade.
yes.
Okay.
But
wanna
if
make
they
sure I
opt
take
out,
the-
then they can use some of their portfolio, right? They could use the portfolio.
That's what we're trying to get clarification on.
clarification
How do we navigate a situation where a student has chosen to not take that assessment?
Right. I mean, so like the ACT, the SAT don't necessarily, like it did in the past, don't necessarily take place of that.
No, they must,
Right.
based on this information, they must take it.
Got it.
Okay, you're in charge of musting them. Okay, understood.
There are clearly going to be
Yeah, I mean-
adjustments made to PARCC. I mean,
There are.
and there's no way that if a student completes Algebra 1 in 8th grade and then goes on to high school, that the geometry or the Algebra 2 wouldn't satisfy the requirement, even though it might not be clear yet. I can't imagine that. But there are a lot of questions about what will happen with Park once the current administration leaves office.
2018. Okay, well, thank you, Ms. Chase. Does anybody else
Thank
have
you.
any questions? No, we're good. Dr. LaSousa, did you have any additional items to report out?
That's it for me.
Mr. DeCola?
I have nothing to report.
Okay, very good. We're going to just move on to committee reports. Personnel, Ms. Clark?
Personnel has not met since our last meeting, and we are meeting, when is our next meeting? I want to say Wednesday, right? But
You could say that.
we're meeting soon.
I think it's next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday?
Next Wednesday.
Is that the same as curriculum?
No, same as finance.
Same as finance? The 19th? Okay. All right. Well, we'll get reminders on that. Curriculum also, Ms. Kenny is not here, but it has not met, but it will meet again October 19th. Finance and Facilities, Mr. Gilfillan. The
17th, 19th.
the 19th. And Policy and Planning, thank God somebody's working.
Sad that it's me too. We met earlier this evening, discussed a few of the policies on the agenda for this evening, as well as next year's school calendar, just sorting out final but to be continued slightly in terms of the end date. And then we also discussed the exemptions, physical education exemptions in the context, how they came up in the meeting. I believe it was the last meeting about cheerleading.
Yeah, very good. Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Franz, since he's apparently the only one working on the board? Thank you for carrying us. Moving on to liaison reports, Mr. Connors is not here. Moving over to the township, Ms. Clark.
Just that on October 18th at 6 PM, there's a domestic violence presentation and conversation here at the township building.
Okay, domestic violence?
Yes.
Okay. And that's sponsored by the township committee?
Yes.
Okay, excellent, thank you. Athletic boosters, Mr. Connors is not here, but the athletic boosters did meet on October 4th. They meet on the first Tuesday of every month at 7 o'clock in the media center at the high school. I just wanted to point out that they approved over $11,000 worth of gifts or grants, a tennis shed for $1,000, $6,000. They approved the Cougar lights, which they were much quieter this year, which was nice. And it was a great weekend. The kids were having fun. The stands were packed. It seemed like everybody had a fantastic time. And they also approved $4,000 for videotaping requests, so that the coaches can use it as a learning tool. So again, their next meeting is on November 1st, Tuesday again at 7 o'clock in the Chatham High School Media Center. Moving on to performing arts, I'm going to take that one as well. So just a quick congratulations to the high school marching band. They, on their first place finish at Randolph, it's a competition called Under the Lights, and they finished first. They took honors in Best Music, Best Percussion, and Best Guard. The marching band also performed to a pretty much sellout crowd at Cougar Weekend, very enthusiastic, and it was well received. The band is also looking forward to their performance Saturday, October 15th at a Wayne Hills competition. The Chatham High School Music Department is working on fundraisers to offset the students' costs for the Disney trip that'll take place in May, correct? Is it May?
Yes.
May or June? Sometime later this year, late spring. This is their second opportunity, and they can offset the cost and bolster their students' accounts by selling. In this instance, this second fundraiser is going to be coupon books with terrific deals with local businesses, and if you see a student and you're able to support, that would be fantastic. And my final item is the fall Chatham High School fall play. You can't take it with you. If you could just note that, mark your calendars, November 17th and 18th, that play will be performed at the high school. Will that be the last fall play performed in that auditorium?
Most likely.
Wow, that's exciting. We'll have to commensurate.
Bring your cameras.
Well, yeah, bring your cameras, and we're going to have to do some sort of, that's going to be some rap party. Good for them. We'll have to make a special point of that. Education Foundation, Ms. Kenny is not here. Recreation, Mr. Gilfillan, have you met?
Nope, nothing to report.
And District Cabinet has not met either. So I'd make a motion to pass the minutes of the public meeting of September 24th, 26th. I apologize, the public session.
I'll second that.
Mr. DeCola, do you mind? I forget who was not present.
The 6 attendees tonight were all present.
Oh,
Hey,
Wait a second, I'll do a roll call vote. The minutes from 9:26, Mr. Gilfillan?
Yes.
Mr. Arnick?
Yes.
Ms. Chicarelli?
Yes.
Ms. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Franz?
Yes.
And Ms. Weber?
Yes,
Passed 6-0.
excellent. Thank you. At this time, we have our first opportunity for public commentary. I notice we've moved the microphone, or there's no microphone. Can we,
The microphone is going to go behind Ms. Chase and Ms. Grant.
and when is that going to happen?
As soon as Ms. Chase puts it there. This is her cue.
I'm just curious, at what point will that happen?
Public commentary was her cue.
Uh,
She's worn out from the presentation.
So if you wouldn't mind just coming up to the mic on the side of the room where there's an actual microphone, and if you could sign in and just introduce yourself if you're from the township, borough, a neighboring town, anything sparks your interest? Nothing? No, did you want to say something? Okay, thank you. Well, you have another opportunity, so in case something piques your interest, you can jump on up there. Are you here for like a merit badge or? Oh, excellent. Citizen of the community? And you have no questions? Leave him alone. He's going for his Eagle Scout.
He's going to do great.
How many more requirements do you have? All righty, well, that's all right then. Then we're going to get this one rubber stamped quickly.
You'll do it.
Well, if you have any questions, you let us know. Well, there's another opportunity at the end, so without any further ado, we're going to move on to the action items. Moving along to personnel.
I move action items A1 through A13 on the regular agenda for a vote.
I'll second.
Does anybody have any questions? And just for the record, if it appears that we're going very quickly through the agenda and items, it's because we get them on Friday, they're posted. I didn't want this young man to think that we're just slopping over our responsibilities. So we get them, we review them, we ask some questions, so. Does anybody have any questions for Dr. LaSousa or Ms. Grant? No?
Be on your best behavior at the convention.
Oh, yeah. Best efforts. Best efforts. No? Seeing no additional questions, Mr. DeQuilla and Mr. Connors joined us, so as long as they attended.
Agenda item A1 through A13, Mr. Gilfillan?
Yes.
Mr. Arnick?
Yes.
Ms. Chicarelli?
Yes.
Ms. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Connors?
Yes.
Mr. Franz?
Yes.
And Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Agenda items passed 7-0.
Loses the student.
Excellent, thank you very much. Moving on to finance and facilities.
Yes, I'd like to move action items B1 through 5 on your regular agenda.
That's a short list for you.
Went out. Just one small thank you to the Lafayette Avenue School PTO. A donation of $2,500 for the purchase of a notification text for each fourth grade English language art classroom.
Excellent.
For the reading workshop model.
Excellent, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. DeQuilla or Mr. Gilfillan? Or Dr. LaSousa on any of the finance items? For all 5 of them? Okay, very good. Mr. DeQuilla, would you mind?
Unless I missed it, I need a second.
Oh,
I'll second it.
sorry about that. Any discussion? Seeing none, Mr. DeQuilla?
Agenda items B1 through B5, Mr. Gilfillan?
Yes.
Mr. Arnick?
Yes.
Ms. Chicarelli?
Yes.
Ms. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Connors?
Yes.
Mr. Franz?
Yes.
And Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Agenda items passed 7-0.
Excellent, thank you very much. Moving on to curriculum, in Ms. Kenny's absence, Mrs. Ciccarelli has agreed to move those items for us.
I'd like to move action item C1 on the regular agenda and C2 on the addendum.
Second.
Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Chase or Dr. LaSousa on the 2 curriculum items? This is a very thin agenda. Now seeing none, Mr. DeQuilla, would you mind?
Agenda items C1 and C2, Mr. Gilfillan?
Yes.
Mr. Arnick?
Yes.
Ms. Chicarelli?
Yes.
Ms. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Connors?
Yes.
Mr. Franz?
Yes.
And Ms. Weber?
Yes,
Agenda items passed 7-0.
excellent, thank you. Moving on to policy,
Peter, you want me to
Mr. Franz?
do an audible?
Yeah, do an audible on that 3rd one.
All right. So, agenda items 1, including the addition of regulation 5331A. agenda item D1.
Second.
Thank you. See, we missed Mr. Nonamaker, seconding these so quickly. And 5331A is the update to the peanut allergy, just because it's not listed here, I just wanted to
Sorry,
explicitly state it.
And other substances,
And other substances, that's correct.
but food center.
And oftentimes, we update policies because our,
Current policies are years old, and this one was just to kind of clean up specifically peanuts. The other two were to just kind of bring forward the policy to current standing.
fantastic, thank you. Does anybody have any questions on any of the policies that have been updated? I believe Ms. Chase worked on these, so she loves to answer questions. No questions? All righty, trying, Karen.
Agenda items D1 as amended. Mr. Gilfillan.
Yes.
Mr. Arnott.
Yes.
Ms. Chicarelli.
Yes.
Ms. Clark.
Yes.
Mr. Connors.
Yes.
Mr. Bruns.
Yes.
And Ms. Weber.
Yes.
Agenda item passed 7-0.
Excellent, thank you. We have an opportunity for board business. I didn't know if Mr. Connors wanted to, make mention of anything of the boosters and Cougar Weekend and the generosity of the boosters for funding a lot of the activities that take place.
Yeah, it would actually, and I apologize for being late, and I apologize I didn't make the last booster meeting, but obviously somebody did. I'd like to actually do acknowledge all the good work that the boosters did. I did not make the last meeting, and I apologize for being late for this one. But yet again, I think they were instrumental in a very successful Cougar Weekend, right? Yes. Very successful
It was
in terms of activities and events.
A last
It was
second win.
excellent. It was an
And,
excellent weekend.
I mean, wins, losses are important, but it was just the overall tenor and the enthusiasm of the student body. But again, the boosters are again standing up and showing their not only verbal commitment, but their financial support for the programs. They gave $1,000 for the tennis, $6,000 for the Cougar Weekend, and then another $4,000 for videotaping. That is just one of many financial contributions that they give, and it is a terrific organization. I sound like a broken record, and I can appreciate that, and I'm sorry. But to those who have students in the high school or approaching the high school, I would please urge you to support the Cougar Athletic Program, as I would suggest you support all of the booster clubs in Chatham, the theater, the boosters, and the arts. So their next meeting is November 1st, of which I will attend and give a wonderful support and summary of their meetings.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Connors.
Thank you, sorry again I'm late.
I appreciate it. Any additional board business? Ms.
I
Clark?
just wanted to just comment again about the referendum and especially give a shout out to the finance and to Jill for all the meetings that you guys sat through, the effort you put through over 18 months to really put together the best package for our town. The numbers really spoke volumes that the town supported our initiatives, and I'm really proud to sit on the board and be able to see these things come forward and serve the kids and serve our entire community. So thank you
Thank
to
you.
that
That was
committee and to you guys for putting that extra effort in.
Yeah, that was certainly a nice turnout and a nice effort. And I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, and I think it's worth noting that the referendum passed on a Tuesday, and on Thursday we started meeting with the architect. The intention of the whole reason that we originally wanted to do the referendum in March because of various schedules, and Department of Education didn't move as quickly as we had hoped that they might, and maybe we didn't move as quickly as we thought we would. In any event, we wanted to do it in March, and the state only offers 5 times a year that you're allowed to run referendums, so our very next opportunity was September. And the whole point of running in September is that we can literally hit the ground running. So 2 days later, we started meeting with the architect. And just to remind folks, we're meeting again tomorrow. We're meeting at 9 o'clock at Cougar Field, and we're meeting at 11 o'clock with the architects at the Chatham High School auditorium. We're trying to get a timeline of milestones, which projects can happen concurrently, which ones have to wait, that have to run consecutively. But the goal is to hit the ground running, get as many projects as we can without disrupting, obviously, instruction. So we think that a lot of the work at Cougar Field can happen immediately. The goal is to not disrupt the performing arts too much, so we'll do one auditorium at a time. We'll do the high school first, and as that's wrapping up and able to allow the students back in, then we'll swing right over to the middle school auditorium. So again, we're trying to move as quickly as we can, and Mr. Gilfillan is being as flexible as he can with his schedule to meet during the day with the architects. He's the chair of the finance and facility, so, we didn't, thank you for your support, thank you for passing the referendum, and we're moving forward as quickly as we can so that the town and the students see the benefit as soon as possible. Ideally, the first progress that you'll see will be at Cougar Field, because that can start as soon as the fall season is over, and then hopefully we can have that, ideally, things will be present by the spring. If not, certainly we'll go full force over the summer and get it done and be finished, completed by the fall season. But we'll meet tomorrow and find out what the timeline is.
Pete, when will they float this bond, though?
January, February.
But we still have to go out to, bid specs and.
Right, just,
Yeah,
when the money's
no,
in the bank.
understood. But we're going to try and run as many projects concurrently as possible, not consecutively. Does anybody else have any additional board business? Mr. Connors, you look like you're...
No.
No, you're good? Mr. Arnott?
No, just regarding the referendum, so low-hanging fruit or earlier priorities at Cougar Field, then Chatham High School,
Correct.
and then following that will be the middle school classrooms, and the roof will be last.
Well, ideally, we can run everything concurrently except for the Chatham Middle School auditorium.
Okay.
Because the new STEM lab is on the right-hand side, we can, gate that area off and not be disruptive to the students. The Milton Avenue addition is off to the left. Similar to the high school, we can put a construction gate. I mean, obviously, we're going to do it as safe as possible, and we'll look to our architects for guidance, but we haven't heard any pushback on not being able to run everything concurrently except for the auditorium for sure, and then we'll have to see how the back classrooms factor in with the milestone.
And some of the roof work.
And the
Some of the
roof
roof work will come after, if there's any construction taking place at a site, the roof work would be the last thing to
And the
happen.
middle school auditorium has some nuance to it because of, tiles that need to be
Yes.
treated in a special way.
Yes,
Okay.
Yep. And as the classrooms behind it
Correct.
also have abatement needs.
yes. So we have to work out how we handle the middle school, the classrooms, and the auditorium. The auditorium will be at the end of the line.
Yes, the middle school auditorium will be at the end of the line.
But the two classroom additions at Milton and the middle school, Cougar, and the high school auditorium all can move right now forward.
Great. Jill, Matt, thank you for moving so quickly on this. I mean, the election just happened and boom, you're right there.
Sure, yeah, we didn't want to waste a minute. Again, that's why we ran it in September. But the board should expect a timeline and a project timeline. We've asked them explicitly that the board wants to see milestones. We want to see where we anticipate each project being at particular milestones. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we'll have that for the board members.
Yeah.
So you can, see it laid out on paper. There's some advantage to, each item will go out in a different bid. There's some, discussion, do you go with one contractor, do you break it up? The philosophy is that if you break it up, you may be able to do a lot more concurrent work. And you've also mitigated your risks as well if one company goes belly up. Because the school has to take the lowest, is it reasonable bid?
Lowest
Responsible bid. Whereas a homeowner, you might not choose that bid, but we have no choice. Unfortunately, at the high school, our contractor did go belly up. It didn't cost the district any money because it's insured, but it cost us time. We lost about 6 months on that project. It's beyond our control because we have to take the lowest responsible bid. But to maybe mitigate some of that risk, if it goes out to 6 different contractors, then the risk is not as great as all the projects being impacted. But again, more to follow, but we know the board is eager. We're going to get you a timeline. We're going to get you milestones. Matt's already requested all this information, so the board will be fully informed as we hit each of those milestone points.
I think it's important that we keep the community informed too, so whether it's through the website or getting information out through the schools and our new
Sure.
communication networks, just to what the projects will look like and
And
how
to
we're
that
gonna-
point, we're pulling in some community members, those that are involved heavily in, for example, performing arts, to get their input on some, because I don't know a thing about performing arts. Mr. Arnott is certainly closer to that than I am, but, and same thing at Cougar, where some of the folks that are, involved in the boosters program, and we're going to pull in and try and solicit not just expert advice, but also some community involvement just on some of the key decisions. Does anybody else have any questions or comments? Oh,
Just
Dr.
to
Richardson?
follow up on one item that Rich raised, Mr. Connors raised last meeting, we have scheduled 3 board meetings to take place in 3 schools over the next 3 months, one in November, one in December, one in January. So you should have received an email today earlier.
I did.
And we'll publicize that and send reminders. And we've spoken with Mr. Salvis about also making arrangements to record as many of those meetings as possible.
Okay, very good. It won't be broadcast live, but it'll be recorded and posted, correct?
Correct, right, Mr. Salvis?
Okay, that's great. Rich, you good with that?
Yes.
I ask for things all the time, he never does it. You ask once, and boom, it's done.
Wish that was the case at my house, but I'll take it.
I think you're being set up for another run. Just throwing it out there. Any additional board business? If not, we'll move on to our second opportunity for public commentary. Again, if you would just form an orderly line at the microphone.
Everyone will get a chance.
No, no questions? I can't coax you into a question? Okay. Well, I could have saved you from taking notes. You just grab an agenda right there and you don't have to take any notes.
Well, Jill, Luke is a very busy young man. He's very involved in Ishinryu Karate.
Okay.
He's very involved in what he's doing right now, so I'm not surprised to see that he's trying to tick off so many responsibilities for him becoming a very valuable, well-rounded, productive young man.
Thank you for coming to our meeting and good luck on your trail to Eagle. I wish you well. No additional public commentary, then I make a motion to close. We have no executive session, right?
No.
I make a motion to close the public session. Second?
Second.
Third. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?